Tonight, flood devastation taking a tragic toll. More lives lost, towns swamped and Sydney suburbs now on alert. Also a baby back with his mum after a bizarre twist in a kidnap ordeal. Ukraine under siege, Kiev targeted with deadly missile strikes as a massive military convoy closes in. A student online jailed for 13 years for preying on girls as young as 10. And football legend Alex Jesaulenko's shock health battle.
Oh, Jesaulenko, you're guilty!
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. Australia's East Coast flood crisis is closing in on Sydney as we go to air, with extreme weather bearing down on the city and some outer suburbs on alert to evacuate. The disaster has claimed another 3 lives, taking the New South Wales death toll to 5.
Ballina on the New South Wales north coast, the latest community in the flood firing line.
I've been here 32 years and it's never happened. Devastating.
SES crews and the Defence Force were kept busy moving people to safety underneath the town's famous Big Prawn. Residents here were warned it was on the way. The hospital was evacuated last night. In Lismore, far less time to prepare. Residents and visitors sharing stories of frantic escapes as water rushed in.
We pretty much had to cut ourselves out of the house with a knife through the basically through the roof of the kitchen.
It's just rained, and by 1 in the morning we got text messages to evacuate.
These friends relieved to be reunited.
I was so worried about this. When I saw it on Facebook, you said you're leaving obvious and stuff.
People started returning to their homes as the floodwater started to recede. It's revealed a grim toll. The body of a second woman in her 80s was discovered in her home. A man was found dead in the CBD, another in a South Lismore unit, the 4th life lost in the town.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the families, and our hearts go out to all of them.
Emergency crews continue to search for victims, door-knocking homes and checking roof cavities. Hello? As the water begins to recede and the massive clean-up gets started.
Just devastating. We to see all the roofs and everything down, it sort of just hits home.
Further south, the farming township of Woodburn remains inundated. How many people are stranded in their homes still isn't clear. The weather system that caused havoc is now moving towards Sydney and the state's south coast, told to brace for a rain bomb tonight.
As these floods move through from the north to the south, that we follow those instructions, those evacuation warnings, if they're in place, please prepare, please get ready to leave.
In southeast Queensland, they're mopping up.
Reports are that the flood experience in Logan was at least as bad as has been experienced since 1974.
In some areas, the worst flood event in 100 years. This quad bike snagged on a power line in Gympie shows just how high the water rose. 2,000 businesses and homes in the town were impacted. Queensland Police is redeploying officers to evacuated flood zones to stamp out looting.
That is an additional 124 staff across the entire southeast.
The Prime Minister vowing to send in additional troops. Army crews have already saved more than 70 people trapped by the floods. The threat isn't over for the region, with more wild weather forecast this week.
Severe thunderstorms with large hail, damaging winds and locally heavy rainfall become likely around the southeast Queensland from today.
In Brisbane, 15,000 homes are cleaning up. More than 8,000 people have already signed up to join the Mud Army, volunteering their time, muscle and food. It's as thousands remain without power and supermarket shelves sit empty. With supply chains cut and warehouses inundated, the disaster far from over. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
And Robert Ovadia joins us now from the flood zone in Ballina. And Robert, locals are battling major headaches there.
Yeah, absolutely. Still tonight, it is somewhat chaotic here. There have been widespread power outages right across the district here in Ballina, and that has had a flow-on effect to mobile phone towers as well. That in turn has meant almost a total lack of communications. No emails in and out. text messages have come at a premium, and even phone calls have been very, very difficult to make. Obviously far from ideal when communications are down and somebody is seeking rescue. Now, a short time ago, we spoke with Telstra. They said they simply cannot access their towers until the water recedes, so it could well be a few days left before that happens.
Robert Avadia in Ballina, thank you. A baby is back with his mum after a bizarre twist in a Melbourne kidnapping case. The 11-month-old was in a car when it was stolen. He was found when the accused thief took the boy to a childcare centre, pretending to be a Good Samaritan.
Never has a cuddle felt so good. A baby boy back in the arms of his relieved mother 4 hours after the family car was stolen with the 11-month-old inside. The nightmare began when the mum got out of her Toyota RAV4 to inspect hard rubbish on a Keysborough street. A man walking by sees the car still running, jumps inside and speeds off. The boy's mum runs after the car, knowing her baby is being kidnapped.
She ran the whole street, frantically screaming the whole way through, trying to stop traffic in the middle of the road, trying to get somebody to stop.
The little boy was driven more than 20 kilometres away to Cranbourne. 7 News understands after the stolen car was dumped, the driver then carried the baby 400 metres to this childcare centre, posing as a Good Samaritan. But the staff recognised him from the appeal and called 000. Frankston man Dean Robertson has been charged with kidnapping, car theft and committing an offence while on bail. He wasn't able to face court today. The magistrate told he's suffering from COVID symptoms and behaving aggressively. He'll spend another night in custody while a family comes to terms with their ordeal. Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
As we go to air tonight, there are reports Russian paratroopers have landed in Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv, hoping to take the besieged city. But Moscow also has Kiev in its sights, and a giant Russian military convoy is now less than 30 kilometres from the capital.
In the Ukrainian capital, a missile strike, followed by another missile strike, and another missile strike. 3 surgical hits on a city in need of first aid. We've been shooting a report nearby when one flew straight over us. The blast enormous, 5 killed. We visited the site as it was still burning.
It looks like the target was this TV tower. You can still see smoke rising from the base here. It's difficult to tell from here just how much damage was inflicted, but if they wanted to bring it down, they failed.
But it did knock out transmission from multiple television stations, an attempt, say Ukrainian officials, to cut off the country from communications so Russia can control the narrative of this war. A war being fiercely fought from the air and on the ground. A tank firing directly at buildings near Kiev with people inside. All that remains now, rubble. Moscow had warned Ukrainian civilians to leave big cities. This was one reason why. Kharkiv's Freedom Square late yesterday when freedom clearly came under attack. At least 10 killed and a government building decimated. This car was driving past as the missiles hit. Survival or death, just a matter of chance.
Ukraine every day. You should stop it. Immediately stop it.
But that is unlikely, it seems. Russia's assault on Ukraine is intensifying. It is brutal and deadly. And despite claims it's only going after military targets like this one in the northwest, these scenes in Kharkiv suggest otherwise. Hospitals, schools, residential buildings, all targeted. Why us? We're regular folks, this woman says. The country's president accusing Moscow of state terrorism for its bombardment of Kharkiv. But despite the bloodshed, Russians have underestimated the strength of Ukraine's resistance. This video has emerged from the first day of fighting. Local troops armed with donated Stinger missiles bring down a Russian helicopter.
Yes! Yes! Here in Kiev, more blackened evidence of another fierce firefight between locals and Russians. These are tank shells scattered by the dozen down this footpath, and over here Heavy vehicle, Russian, blackened and burned. It's scenes like these that leave Ukrainians rejoicing at the success of their military and volunteers. But the threat approaching from the north right now is far more serious.
Satellites watching the slow, terrifying progress of a 64-kilometre convoy of Russian tanks headed straight for the capital. Some in the city weren't waiting for their arrival, scrambling for trains headed out that were too full to take them all. Then, in the middle of this panic boarding, air raid sirens, as if they needed a reminder of why they were going.
Awful feeling.
Yeah.
Yes. But we don't have place.
You couldn't get on the train?
No.
It's mostly women and children, the dads and partners staying to help defend the city.
Afraid, very afraid.
Where are you going to go to? Do you know where you're going?
I don't know.
There's a real sense of fear and foreboding here in Kiev in the knowledge that the Russian war machine is approaching. So many just want to get out, but there are only so many trains and too few seats.
But those who choose to stay are galvanised by Russia's aggression.
We won't give up on Ukraine. Putin is an idiot. I would rather die from starvation than be their slave.
A makeshift production line has been set up in one city basement as women sew camouflage nets for their troops. It's our duty. They die there for us, says this woman, while men line the streets to buy guns.
Russians kill little children, 5-6 years old, and we don't want it. We have to fight against it.
Ordinary Ukrainians willing to risk their lives to slow the invasion of their country. Even if it's a fight, they may be unable to win.
And Chief Correspondent Chris Reason joins us live now from Kiev. Chris, you've just been forced to leave your hotel.
Yeah, Peter, we got a phone call last night saying they wanted to evacuate this place at 7 o'clock this morning. A short time later, we got a phone call saying they wanted us out by 6 and 7. Basically, there was an urgency there. No panic, but they wanted to close the hotel down. No staff want to come to work. They want to hide, understandably, in their homes and bunkers right now. Look, we're sharing this hotel with the UNHCR and International Red Cross, and they too had to leave by the same time. You can see them gathering here. They've actually put out a social media message to anyone else in the community that wants to join their convoy out to the safety of the West, saying that drive with them, you get that umbrella of safety being with the International Aid Agency. Now, just quickly, the Russians are facing problems of their own as well. That 64-kilometre column has struggled to make any progress at all today, hasn't moved. Beset, they say, according to US intelligence sources, with shortages of food and with fuel. Peter, back to you.
Chris Reason in Kiev, thank you. Ukraine's president says 17 children were killed in the conflict just last night, and more lives are at risk in the basement of Kiev's main maternity hospital. Under the rusty pipes, mothers are clinging to their sick children who need continuous care, unable to leave the capital for safety. Ukraine's defiant president has pleaded for help to defend his homeland in an emotional speech to the European Parliament. Volodymyr Zelensky received a standing ovation, but NATO is resisting his calls to send in fighter planes or soldiers.
As war rages, Vladimir Putin has already lost on one front, his desire to divide Europe.
He has achieved exactly the opposite. We are more united than ever.
24 hours after officially applying for Ukraine to join the EU, Volodymyr Zelensky addressed European Parliament.
We are fighting just for our land and for our freedom.
A standing ovation for a defiant commander-in-chief off to lead the defence as Boris Johnson visited neighbouring Poland. The British Prime Minister forced to explain to a Ukrainian journalist why the West isn't doing more.
Because NATO is afraid of World War III, but it is already started. And these are Ukrainian children who are there taking the hit. We don't know where to run.
Look, I just want to say that I'm acutely conscious that there is not enough that we can do.
British tanks are in neighbouring Estonia, French forces touching down in Romania, and in Poland, a country also living in Russia's shadow, thousands of US paratroopers. These elements of the 82nd Airborne Division are stationed just a few kilometres from the Ukrainian border. They were moved here to bolster NATO's eastern flank. But their mission is to reassure allies only. NATO's chief also here reiterating it won't send soldiers or planes into Ukrainian airspace to avoid a confrontation with Russia. But today, diplomats did turn their backs. A mass walkout at the UN Human Rights Council during a speech by Russia's foreign minister. On the Polish border, Sarah Greenhalgh, 7 News.
Joe Biden has used his State of the Union address to the US Congress to announce a blanket ban on Russian planes in US airspace. The American president says Vladimir Putin's invasion is a bad miscalculation.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
A year into office, addressing the nation at a time of war.
6 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin sought to shake the very foundations of the free world, thinking he could make it bend to his menacing ways. But he badly miscalculated.
With Ukraine's ambassador watching on,
thank you.
Joe Biden delivered his first speech to a joint session of Congress as Putin's missiles rained down on Ukraine.
He thought he could roll into Ukraine and the world would roll over. Instead, he met with a wall of strength he never anticipated or imagined. He met the Ukrainian people.
With masks and COVID largely in the rear view, the president confronted the new evil.
We will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights. He has no idea what's coming.
To Russia's oligarchs,
we're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets.
President Biden framed his opening remarks as a battle of good versus evil, democracy versus autocracy. But beyond the first 12 minutes, he pivoted from Ukraine to a predictable laundry list of problems at home, hoping to hit reset on his crippled domestic agenda.
The answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund the police.
At a moment testing America's strength, the president declaring,
the State of the Union is strong because you, the American people, are strong.
In Washington, D.C., Ashley Mullane, 7 News.
Ukraine is waking up to the 7th day of this war. Russian troops are circling the capital, Kiev, but they're muscling in on cities in the country's south. Here's Mike Amor with the latest data.
Peter, Ukrainians have now endured this war for a week, but they're putting up a strong fight. According to the Ukraine Ministry of Defence, nearly 6,000 Russian troops have been killed in the first 6 days of conflict. They say they've taken 200 prisoners, destroyed 29 aircraft and nearly 200 tanks. These are the areas of Ukraine under Russian control as troops close in on the capital, Kiev. The Pentagon says Russia has not taken Kharkiv or Mariupol, but troops are occupying nearby towns. 600,000 refugees have fled Ukraine, half of them into Poland. The rest have travelled to Slovakia, Hungary, Romania and Moldova. The UN is preparing for up to 4 million refugees from Ukraine. It's on track to become Europe's biggest refugee crisis this century. Peter.
Mike Amor, thank you. And Melbourne City Council has voted unanimously to suspend our sister city relationship with St Petersburg in Russia.
We really are saying strongly that we object to the invasion of Ukraine by Russia.
Melbourne partnered with Russia's second largest city in 1989. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has tested positive for coronavirus after experiencing flu-like symptoms. The hunt now begins to find out if he's infected others while he isolates at home in Sydney.
First of all, can I just thank everybody for their very kind wishes after I confirmed last night that I tested positive for COVID.
His wife Jenny and their 2 daughters are all negative. The Blues and the Demons are going to step out tomorrow night. Tim Watson, the teams are in.
Mitch, Sam Doherty's fairy tale return to AFL level has been put on hold. We'll also have details ahead of a star forward who's back. Also, how the D's are preparing for round 1 as they continue to ride a wave of success. A glowing endorsement too for Daisy Pearce from the Cats skipper on a coaching role. And Mitch, there's been an injury scare at your Magpies. Exclusive details ahead.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim. We'll see you later. The law has caught up with a cruel online predator. He preyed on 10-year-old girls. The details are next on 7 News. Also coming up, truck terror on a busy freeway in Melbourne's north. A $14 million shock in the pro-build construction collapse. Melbourne set for a high fashion revival. Jane Bunn live on location. And later, Coles delivering groceries by drone. There was a terrifying truck crash on one of Melbourne's busiest freeways this morning. The large truck on the left suddenly jackknifed on the Western Ring Road, sending its load across 3 lanes. It narrowly missed several vehicles and forced others to swerve at the last minute. It's believed the driver had to suddenly stop due to a crash ahead. It's unclear if anyone was badly hurt. A university student has been jailed for more than 13 years over a sickening extortion campaign targeting young girls. A judge said the man was on an inhumane mission to destroy his victims' lives.
Ranpati Amarasingh's depravity knew no bounds. The Sri Lankan student preyed on girls as young as 10 years old, blackmailing them to satisfy his sick needs. He used social media to ask 6 girls, all strangers, to send him explicit selfies, then told them he'd forward the images to their families and friends, unless they sent him more. Get ready to be ruined. Want me to send these vids to your friends? Amarasingh followed through with his threats, in one instance sending a girl's nude video to her friend's 12-year-old brother.
By objectifying these girls, you dehumanised them, and in the process, you lost your own humanity.
The now 24-year-old was arrested by the AFP in 2020 on child porn and child abuse charges. He was today sentenced to 13.5 years in prison.
The most important thing is protecting our children from these type of offences and this type of offending, especially protecting their innocence.
Amarasingh further humiliated one of his victims by uploading her videos to an adult porn site. He also included the young girl's full name and links to her social media accounts.
The impact of this obscene conduct on your young innocent victim is beyond imagining.
Amarasingh will be deported to Sri Lanka as soon as he completes his sentence. Estelle Grieping, 7 News.
Victoria has recorded a further 28 COVID-related deaths in the past 24 hours, but most occurred last month. The number of people in hospital is slightly up to 264, with 37 people in intensive care. That's 4 fewer than yesterday. The state reported just over 7,100 new cases. Almost 60% of Victorians aged 18 and over have had 3 vaccine doses. There's just under 9 hours until Western Australia opens up to the world for the first time in almost 700 days. The state is experiencing its first major COVID surge with a record 1,766 new local cases today. There are new restrictions and indoor mask rules have been extended, with 10,000 daily infections expected by the end of the month.
Good afternoon, everyone.
It's been revealed collapsed construction giant ProBuild owes hundreds of tradies millions of dollars. Rochelle Brown joins us now, and Rochelle, ProBuild's administrators were in the federal court today.
Mitch, more than 800 workers are owed $14 million, and that is just the beginning. The federal court today heard 2,300 creditors are claiming they are owed money, and more are expected to come forward. Administrators calling it a nightmare. Tradies were forced to put down their tools and contractors were left in limbo after the construction giant parent company was plunged into administration last week. Up to $5 billion worth of projects are now hanging in the balance. Lawyers say the best case scenario is to keep the company going as they search for a buyer. Mitch?
Rochelle Brown at North Melbourne, thank you. It's the opening night of the Melbourne Fashion Festival. Jane Bunn is at Government House this evening, and Jane, glamour is back as part of the city's revival.
Mitch, this truly marks the return of marvellous events in Melbourne. VIPs are ready for a special night to kick off Australia's largest fashion event. As Melbourne comes back to life, there is a full schedule to get us back into the city. I'll have more on this later, as summer doesn't let go on another warm and humid day. It reached 30 as hit and miss thunderstorms rolled through. Now, most suburbs were missed, only a few of those were hit. We have our own significant rain on the way. I'll have the full details on that after sport, Mitch.
Thank you, Jane. We'll see you then. A 5-year-old boy has ended up in hospital in a vaping shock at school. His father's warning is next on 7 News. Also coming up, a mystery in Melbourne's northeast. A man critically injured, but no one knows what happened to him. The Queen on the mend. The latest live from Buckingham Palace. And a football legend's health shock. Mystery surrounds the discovery of a critically injured man on a Doncaster street. Neighbours say the man in his 60s was seen on security cameras leaving his building at around midnight. He was found by garbage collectors 5 hours later with life-threatening injuries. Major collision investigators have ruled out a hit-run. A 5-year-old Geelong boy has ended up in hospital after vaping with a classmate at school. His furious father is demanding tighter restrictions on vapes, which are often illegally marketed to children.
Dad Stephen is furious. His sons, aged 5 and 7, were able to vape at school.
Another child grabbed his mum's vape at home, brought it into the schoolyard and asked them to come into the bushes and suck on this, it tastes like grapes.
3 weeks later, Stephen says his 5-year-old is still sick, enough to end up in hospital 5 days ago.
He couldn't stop coughing to the point that he was no longer breathing. I had no choice but to call an ambulance.
That alone is equivalent to about 180 cigarettes. These are really designed to market and to target to kids.
Online vape ads feature cartoons, fruit and catchy lines, a must for all sweet tooth and candy lovers. Stephen wants that kind of marketing made illegal and better child protection on the devices.
I can't open a Panadol bottle without some force, as you'd well know, but a child can pick up one of these devices that has nicotine in it.
Stephen paid almost $3,500 to have the vape analysed in a private laboratory, and the preliminary results have shocked him. He's been told there are at least 16 different chemicals, including nicotine. Nicotine vapes are only allowed on prescription.
These are not doing anybody any good whatsoever. They are not harmless.
One father's crusade now gathering momentum. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Overseas, the Queen has returned to hosting virtual audiences 9 days after Her Majesty tested positive for COVID. Hugh Whitfeld is at Buckingham Palace. And Hugh, what more can you tell us about the Queen's recovery?
Well, Peter, palace officials aren't commenting on whether the Queen is COVID negative or the status of her condition, but it does appear that she was well enough to join 2 video calls with 2 new ambassadors from Windsor Castle, and those ambassadors were visiting Buckingham Palace to present their credentials. The 95-year-old triple vaccinated monarch had to pull out of similar virtual engagements last week, suffering what we are told were mild cold-like symptoms. Prince Charles, asked about his mother's condition on a visit to Essex, reportedly told one local she's a lot better now. The future king also voicing his support for Ukraine as he honoured a local MP who was murdered.
We are seeing those same values under attack today in Ukraine in the most unconscionable way. In the stand we take here, we are in solidarity with all those who are resisting brutal aggression.
It's after the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge praised the Ukrainian people and President Volodymyr Zelensky. Mitch.
Hugh Whitfeld in London. Thank you. Novavax is set to be approved for use as a COVID booster injection. Australia's vaccine regulator has recommended the jab be made available to people aged 18 and over. The protein-based shot has already been cleared for use as a first and second dose against the virus. It's been created as an alternative to the newer mRNA formulas. Carlton Football Club greats are rallying around the legendary Alex Jesaulenko after his Parkinson's disease diagnosis. They've answered the call to participate in a walk to raise money for charity in Jez's name.
For Alex Jesaulenko's family, his Parkinson's diagnosis hit hard.
His symptoms have been for the past year some tremors in his hands and some stiffness in his body. The diagnosis was a big shock to us, obviously.
Oh, Jesaulenko, you beauty! Jesaulenko, you beauty!
For his doting grandsons, Luca and Alessio, and his entire family, the fact the 76-year-old blues legend was once so nimble made it even tougher.
He's always been a very athletic, person, always running, doing things, and that has really slowed him down.
For him, they've formed Team Jezza to raise funds for Fight Parkinson's at a charity walk on March 27th. They're recruiting dozens of Alex's old teammates to join them, including Alex Marcoux and Jimmy Buckley.
A quick hand pass to Buckley. It's coming back.
There's no tougher bloke than Alex. He'll fight this, and the big thing about it, mate, we're all there to help him, and everyone's got to rally around Alex Jesaulenko.
Over to Marcoux. There's the one that down.
He's a legend of the game. I love him.
Jezza himself will not walk, but a sea of blues legends will boost his battle against the disease.
He will definitely be extremely overwhelmed at the support that he's got.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
The best of luck to Team Jezza. A supermarket giant is taking to the sky for an Australian first, drone deliveries to the doorstep. Details are next on 7 News. Also coming up, Melbourne scientists unlock the key to bringing the Tasmanian tiger back to life. And mental health help for children in Melbourne's northeastern suburbs. A new facility is being built in Melbourne's northeast to cater for the rising number of children with mental health issues. They'll stay at the centre with their parents while receiving early intervention treatment.
We estimate that around 150 families per year will be supported through this facility.
The centre was a recommendation of the Mental Health Royal Commission, which was tabled in Parliament a year ago today. A Range Rover has smashed through the front window of a shop at Albert Park. The vehicle mounted the footpath just metres from an outdoor dining area around 4:30 this afternoon. Police say no one was injured. They expect to interview the 71-year-old driver. A major supermarket is taking its home delivery service to new heights. Shoppers will be able to receive groceries from the sky in an Australian first drone delivery trial.
Coles is taking to the skies, going futuristic to get groceries into homes.
Delivery can take an average of about 10 minutes, but our fastest delivery so far has been 3.5 minutes.
Shoppers can order from more than 250 products, from bread and fresh produce to healthcare items and toilet paper.
We've got about a 1 kilo weight limit, so we're seeing a lot of customers buying things like bananas and strawberries and milk.
Orders are placed on the Wing app with packers ready to go at a special warehouse.
The drone climbs to an altitude, a flying altitude, and then proceeds to the designated destination at about 110 kilometres an hour. It arrives at the location, hovers about 7 metres off the ground, and then lowers the package via a tether to the ground for the customer to collect.
The pilot program is offering no delivery fee and no minimum spend to entice customers to indulge in the next level delivery service.
Drone delivery has become increasingly integrated into the lives of Australians.
For now, the service is only available in Canberra, but if it proves popular, the drones could be hovering right across Australia in the near future. The partnership now looking at ways to overcome barriers like bad weather and increased air traffic. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Melbourne scientists are somehow attempting to bring the Tasmanian tiger back to life. The ambitious University of Melbourne project involves sequencing the extinct thylacines genome to provide a blueprint. A research laboratory will be set up using a $5 million donation.
The really great thing is that this has now become science fact rather than science fiction. This is something we actually can achieve now with the technologies that we have available today.
Researchers are hoping it could be possible in the next 5 to 10 years. We will wait and see. Sport is next with Tim Watson. And Tim, there's an emotional selection at the Blues.
Mitch, this is a good story. Sam Docherty is on the comeback trail. All the team news for Carlton's pre-season clash with Melbourne is coming up. Also, intrigue surrounds Chris Scott's coaching future, but his skipper is all praise for a pioneer that could be headed to the Cattery. Injury concerns for a promising Magpies star who's now in a race for round one. And why Nathan Lyon could be on the outer with spin. No sure thing in Pakistan. Welcome back. Former Carlton captain Sam Docherty will make his return to football tomorrow. Chief Football reporter Tom Brown has the details. And Tom, it will be through the VFL.
It will be through the VFL tomorrow, Tim, but it's a pretty triumphant return given his terrible illness, the recurrence of that illness. It's an incredibly brave effort for Docherty. I don't think he'll play round one. They'll take a conservative approach, but he is playing Sam Docherty in the twos tomorrow. Now, Curnow and Wiedering have been rested for their practice game. Mackay and Martin both back. I am assured tonight that Mackay and in particular Curnow and Wiedering are right for round one. Moving to Melbourne tonight, Tim, the players, or at least some of them, went surfing, as you can see at Urban Surf today. They've got their AGM tonight. The board challenge, which was mooted, hasn't been successful. The 3 existing directors returned. An announcement on Simon Goodwin's contract won't be announced tonight, but I do understand that extension is now a mere formality and will be announced, obviously, in coming weeks for their coach, Simon Goodwin. And Tim, tonight I'll leave you with one on Chris Scott. At least officially, the Cats coach is out of contract at the end of the year. Today, their CEO, Steve Hocking, says that he has agreed to an extension, at least on paper, for 23 and 24, but it isn't signed yet. They're still working through the finer points.
He's committed here. He's certainly committed here for the remainder of this year and 23 and 24, and we're really excited about that. There's nothing untoward in any of it. He knows he's staying. We're committed to him.
Bit confusing, Tim. I don't think that signature will be before the start of the season. I expect Scott will sign, but he'd be hugely in demand. So until he formally signs that agreement, which Steve Hocking says, there will be an air of intrigue surrounding his contract status, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. And still at Geelong, and Joel Selwood has given a glowing endorsement for pioneer Daisy Pearce to enter the AFL coaching ranks. The Cats skipper has a new role this season, which he believes could help him flourish as a leader.
Heading into his 11th season as captain, Joel Selwood is as equipped as any to discuss the future of coaching.
I think there will be a female senior coach at some level.
Selwood's Cats now close to landing Daisy Pearce as an AFL assistant coach, with 6 grants up for grabs to help graduate women into men's programs.
I think Daisy's an exceptional person from what I've had to do with her over the journey. She's going to hopefully come into our program and make a big difference.
The skipper attending just 20% of midfield centre bounces on Saturday and set for more time in attack this season.
It's something that we will look to do a little bit different this year. It will look that way at times it'll be purely on ball too. To be honest, Mitch, it's probably easy to lead from being a layer outside of the congestion.
Selwood joining local leagues as part of the Baseline Your Brain initiative, where 30,000 Victorian players will complete 10-second eye tests to monitor brain health.
This is not going to diagnose concussion. This is going to give you a baseline and an understanding of how the individual is tracking.
And Jordan De Goey missed last weekend against Hawthorn, and despite training today, still faces a fitness test with tackling on Friday to prove he's over a broken rib in order to play against GWS on Sunday. Defender Charlie Dean was in for scans this afternoon on a foot concern, having not completed the full session today. The Pies are sweating on that outcome, given he had been earmarked for a round one debut to play on St Kilda's Max King with his teammate Jordan Roughead injured. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. Saints ruckman Paddy Ryder is touch and go for round one. The 34-year-old is battling a persistent Achilles injury and trained away from the main group today. It's a big issue for the Saints, who face the Magpies in round one. Fellow ruckman Rowan Marshall will have his first pre-season run when the Saints face Essendon on Saturday. Despite preparing for a spinning subcontinent wicket, Nathan Lyon is tempering expectations. The Aussie bowler and former groundsman doesn't believe spin will play a massive role in the series against Pakistan.
We're actually training about 3 pitches over on the centre wicket, and it actually wasn't spinning that much. It's not the type of wicket that I'd probably produce if I was still doing my curating stuff, but those days are longer.
The first test starts on Friday. Flemington will be abuzz over the next few weeks with Group 1 racing returning to the track. Racing royalty Gai Waterhouse was on hand today to launch the Autumn Carnival ahead of Saturday's Australian Guineas.
It seems to be getting bigger every year, especially with the recent introduction of the All-Star Mile. Really looking forward to the next few weeks.
Boom galloper Zaki is favourite for the Blimey Stakes on Saturday, targeting the All-Star Mile in a fortnight. Supercars drivers are preparing for a wet and wild start to the season at Sydney Motorsport Park when they hit the track on Saturday.
It's going to be awesome. Weather dependent, obviously, but hopefully we can hold it. It holds out, and hopefully we can put on a show.
You can watch all the action here on 7. They'll need their windscreen wipers up there, Mitch.
They will indeed. Thank you very much, Tim. Jane Bunn is next with the weather details. And Jane, it looks like a warm one tomorrow.
Mitch, we're heading into a warm and sunny Thursday, but there is rain on the horizon. I'll have the full details after the break.
Hello, tonight at 9:30 on the latest from 7 News, weather emergency. We're tracking the New South Wales rain bomb. Brisbane's epic clean-up begins. WA's border, hours from coming down, we'll go live to Perth. The very latest from Ukraine as violence escalates in Kyiv. And what next for the Queen after her COVID recovery? We'll have the latest from 7 News, 9:30.
Hello again. Now, before the forecast, here is Yolanda Finch, acting CEO of Melbourne Fashion Festival. Yolanda, what are the key trends we're expecting this season?
Well, Jane, you're nailing it because the key trends are all about colour. Oh. I'm not. I'm going Melbourne tonight. But loads and loads of colour this season. And there's wonderful suiting as well for women, which is a really wonderful trend that I'm really, really enjoying. And it suits everybody and it makes you look so sharp.
Love it, love it. Now, some highlights of the next week and a bit for the festival.
Well, the runways are always highlights of this festival. I think everyone knows we're famous for our runways. Because of the density limits lifting lately, we've still got tickets available. So we really hope to see everyone coming on down, glamming up and joining us at the runway.
Thank you very much. Now let's go into the weather as we have significant rain on the way. It is arriving this weekend. But Melbourne was on storm watch this afternoon. A few popped up tracking southwards today. Now local heavy falls while most parts of Melbourne did miss out with pockets of bright, warm and humid sunshine. The city reached 30 degrees and the high humidity makes it feel several degrees warmer. This morning had patchy, generally light rain left over from yesterday's heavier activity. That gradually cleared as the day went on when the hit and miss storms popped up. Far East Gippsland has some of New South Wales's rain coming in. The weather map shows us why it feels like Queensland here. The high to our south lets the wind pick up moisture from the Pacific Ocean before pushing it down to us. Meanwhile, Cyclone Annika crosses the Kimberley coast, creating a northwest cloud and rain band. Now that is Victoria's next major weather feature. The moisture from that cyclone will come here too, so it is extra humid and low pressure is set to deepen. So later Friday and on Saturday, we have significant rain crossing Victoria. It goes from west to east. It is due in Melbourne in the early hours of Saturday. Now this will bring 20 to 60 millimetres widespread. That is significant rain for us, but nothing like what we've seen in the flooding up north. It's a month's worth, not a year's worth. Around the nation tomorrow, storms do return to Brisbane. It's heavy rain, but not widespread like last time. Sydney in the severe zone, another 100 to 150 millimetres, but tomorrow is the last day of it. Canberra, a bit of rain up to 15 millimetres. To Victoria, East Gippsland still has a bit of wet weather, only heavy in the far corner around Malakuta. Otherwise, Victoria is back to sunshine. It is warm and humid in easterly winds. Closer in, there is no wet weather at all tomorrow. It is humid and warm with bright sunshine, so it'll feel even warmer than these temperatures show both day and night. City begins on 18, it reaches 30. We have a warm, sunny and humid day. To the 8-day outlook, we remain humid, warm and sunny on Friday, expecting a top of about 31, maybe 32. Now it is dry all day and for much of the evening too. So if you're heading out, if you're home by about 10 p.m, you should stay dry. Then the rain starts in the early hours of Saturday morning. Expect between 5 and 8 a.m. That's the heaviest, 20 to 60 millimetres. Showers continue for the rest of Saturday and Sunday. We take a bit of a break on Monday. They come back on Tuesday, but cooler temperatures. So bright sunshine, warm and humid, a top of 30, and absolutely lovely here tonight, Mitch, to kick off this fashion festival.
Couldn't be better, could it? Thank you very much indeed, Jane. And that's the way it is this Wednesday, the 2nd of March. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.